Hey and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our new weekly Only Murders in the Building theory discussion. And for this video, we are going deep. We are talking all about the long game, a situation involving the potential murder of Charles Hayden Savage to quote somebody from True Detective Season 1, may have been planning this for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a theory around the show for all the seasons
Yeah.
that Charles has been the intended victim of a killing for all this time, for all 4 seasons, that he is the person that has been intended to die, that there's some sort of like grand Moriarty type character behind the scenes that's been trying every season in some way, shape, or form and has just kind of missed it every time. And that this season they're finally able to get their revenge. The movie that Charles was watching in the very first episode in the premiere here this season, it was about revenge. So whatever the theme is for this season, whether it is a long game or whether it is just right now, it feels like the person behind it has had a long time standing revenge plot.
Yeah. So, what does long game mean in the context of it showing up on Sazz's desk?
Mhm.
How could somebody have been planning all of this? And beyond everything else, why is now, or to be more specific, the end of season 3, why was that the time in which this potential person decided, okay, it's time to end the long game, it's time to start actually putting things into action?
Mhm.
These are the questions we are taking on in this Only Murders in the Building. Sorry, I'm making
I thought
myself
you were about to
crack
get
up.
into there, being like, these are the days of our lives.
That's why I was
Like,
doing it. I was just like,
where are we going
I
with this?
know what I'm about to do here, and I don't know if anybody wants to venture into the sands of the hourglass.
I do.
Okay, all right. Well, before we venture into the sands of the hourglass that are this particular video, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we are doing 3 Only Murders in the Building videos a
Mhm.
week. We have our reviews, which are every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We also have previews later that same day on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays, like this one, we have theories. So hit that subscribe button. It's a great way to make sure you don't miss anything we're giving you.
Also, if you're looking for more thriller mysteries, slow horses, that just started up. We're covering that here at the channel.
Mhm.
The Old Man with Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow. That's going to be coming back for season 2 next week. We're really excited about
Yes.
that as well. And if you're interested in The Penguin, which is, of course, a Batman themed show, but at the same time, it's really about crime. If you're
Yeah.
interested in that, we are going to be covering that exclusively on our Patreon. We'll leave a link for you below. It's a great way to help support us here at the channel to be able to continue to make these videos for you. And you get to watch our weekly Penguin reactions. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined our Patreon.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, let's talk long game because
Yes.
that was something that was written on, like, it was like a golf brochure that said long game on it. And it was something that stood out right away to a lot of us. What I found really interesting is we had a commenter here, Pete J1987. I'm looking at you. Thank you so much for pointing this out, that golf tournament on it says that it's being hosted by the brothers. And we know that the brother sisters are the
Yeah.
director of this film, something that Sazz doesn't have anything to do with. So why was this on her desk? And why very specifically on this golf tournament that seems to be being hosted by these directors, would it say long game?
So there's a couple of interesting little tidbits to point out here. I mean, I will start by saying, despite the hat that I'm wearing, I'm not a golfer. And also, the idea here, long game is a golf term which can be defined, and I had to do research on this, and mostly thanks to the Jay Hernandez movie, The Long Game, I know about this. But long game can be described as, hitting long range swings. I guess just saying that shows that I'm not a golfer. I know the short game is like the putts, but anyway, I think that may stand out the golfers, but I don't think that's why this is written on this card. I think
No.
that's just like a silly little red herring or a nod maybe to some golf fans that are out there. I think this is a very inherent reference to whatever has been planned here in relation to Charles has been for some time. Now, when it comes to the brother sisters, I'm still standing by what I said in the premiere reaction, which is that I don't think somebody who is like at the top of this upcoming movie is responsible for killing Charles, just because it feels like a lot of work for the brother sisters to go through to direct this movie when they were planning to kill Charles before it even started. It doesn't really feel like there's much of an incentive for them to be doing this, but could they be connected to the killer somehow?
That's the thing. If the killer is connected to this movie, it feels like it's not going to be somebody that has real money involved in it or has a high standing like a Bev Mellon, who's a producer for Paramount. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to then try to kill off Charles before Charles has signed over his life rights. I mean, after death, trying to get anything done through the estate is very, very difficult. And with them having already pushed through this movie without talking to anybody, where they're 3 weeks out from filming, they've been putting this movie together for months. It takes
Yeah.
a really long time to get something like this together, to get everybody contracted, to get the location scouted, to get everything together. Like, even the fact that it's taking them this long to get to the life rights, or this long, we even saw in episode 2 was like a notice in the building to be like, don't let this movie come here. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, they're 3 weeks out. Like, this, how is everything so last minute? This wouldn't be a thing. Okay, let's talk about Sazz, because Sazz, her desk was covered in clues. Like, she had been diving into this for a little while. This wasn't like she found something out and then was going to go and tell Charles right away. So, there's a theory out there. Did she think that someone was going to kill Charles? I don't think that that's where it was going, because that's immediate danger to his life. Someone has already tried to kill Charles.
Yeah.
Almost every single season, Sazz would have just called him right away and been like, listen, your life is in danger. The fact that Sazz, this whole past episode was her being like, I tap in whenever something dangerous is happening to Charles. She's not going to think that somebody is trying to kill him and not tell him right away. She's not going to, let me gather all the information and then bring it to Charles. She doesn't want anything to happen to him, and she taps in right away. The second idea is that she thinks that maybe there was somebody stalking him, but that again is in that same dangerous spot, right? It feels like she would tell him right away. The fact that she told Charles at the party, listen, I have something sensitive to talk to you about later, tells me that she found out that somebody is going to expose a secret from either his past or in the industry, something that he's done within the industry, and that it's going to come to the surface, and that this person might be looking for money, looking to keep him quiet, whatever. That now that the movie is being made and it's about their life rights, I mean, this was said in the premiere, this is something where this secret could come out. Like, movies and documentaries, stuff like, they are ruthless. They will pull up anything. And especially in this day and age where it's like, the more drama, the more pain, the more secrets, juicy, whatever we can get up on screen will expose that. And so what I think happened is Sazz maybe figured out what the secret was, but couldn't figure out who was behind it. And then when she finally figured out who it was that was, trying to keep the movie from happening, keep Charles from talking, she got dead. She finally brought it to him, but it was going to be too late.
Yeah, it's a situation where I don't think anybody on Only Murders in the Building or any of us within the fandom, we want to see Sazz look like a bad person for not telling Charles sooner. So I think we all, we all kind of have to collectively believe here that Sazz was trying to do what she thought was right in every given circumstance. And so it's like, with that in mind, I don't think she believed until maybe the very last minute, and even then, that this was anywhere near as serious as it was. I think she probably knew that this was all going on a long time to a certain extent here, because long game. Dudenoff. We
Mhm,
know from
mhm, mhm,
seeing the show that the Dudenoff department
mhm.
is pretty barren. It is desolate. It has clearly been there a long time. So this is somebody who has had the means and opportunity to either kill Charles themselves or hire somebody to kill Charles. It's not like Charles has never stood in front of that window because Mama Sauce talked all about how Charles is creeping out, watching her. I mean, she's making up a lot of this in her head, but you know what I mean. So ultimately, there has to be this big question of, okay, why is this happening now? And like you spelled out, a lot of it may just be due to there is something about the movie happening that is causing them to think, okay, now is the time. But of course, the curious question is, if this movie wasn't happening, would this killer have ever done it? Or would there have been some other moment, such as
Mhm,
Charles saying,
mhm,
okay, I'm going to write a tell-all book about Brazos
mhm,
and
mhm,
everything else
mhm.
that's kind of in that direction. I think that there has to be a connection here when it comes to timing. And then
Mhm.
beyond all that, this killing clearly did not work, provided that Charles is the target. We both think that Charles is the target.
Mhm.
So from there, we get into somebody potentially on the movie. If somebody on the movie is responsible for this, is now going to have to get a little bit more creative in trying to bring this long game into life.
Yeah, I mean, maybe whoever's working for the movie was dragging their feet on getting the life rights. Maybe it's whoever was supposed to be in charge of that dragged their feet is
Yeah.
responsible because they thought that they were going to be able to kill Charles before he signed them over and whatever secret was going to come out. We know that from season 3 with everything with Ben that Charles is going to have some secrets in his past.
Yes.
He's everybody does. Like you're living a long time. Everybody's done things that they're proud of. Everyone's done things that they're not proud of. Lots of people have even done things that they don't even realize have affected somebody else, but
Mhm.
it has, and they've held on to it, right? So, I mean, it can even be a situation like that. Charles is kind of clueless on a lot of stuff where it's just like, oh, wow. I did this, or like I don't even remember. It's a long life, right? So is it possible that he doesn't even know what he's done, or is it possible he does and it's something that he's ashamed of?
I think it could very well be something that he's ashamed of because Charles, at least in this iteration, he is very guarded in a lot of ways. He doesn't like to be vulnerable. He seems
Hmm.
like he likes to talk about the positive parts of his
Right.
past. But
Yep.
usually, if you get famous and the way in which he was famous, things get to your head. Like it was very specifically
Hmm.
planted that he wasn't the nicest to Ben Glenroy in season 3. And
Yeah.
so I think it is more than feasible, whether he knows it or not, that he offended somebody else to the point that they were like, okay, from here on out, and this goes into this Moriarty thing that you brought up earlier in this video, I'm going to make it my mission to get revenge on Charles in some way, shape, or form, and he's not gonna see it coming.
That's the thing is every season feels like it's been driving Charles further and further into like this kind of bad place. Like the very first season is Jan, someone that he's in love with, that he thinks he might have a life with, and it turns out that she's a killer and, tries to kill him. And it like starts him on this path that while good things are happening with the podcast and with the trio, and he's enjoying having relationships, he's a very lonely guy before this. Without that, he's bad things are starting to happen around him. Even with the play, we saw how frazzled he was getting and he was just unable to focus. Somebody's trying to kill him with sandbags. Like it just feels like it's been kind of ongoing. But I think the real key to this long game and why that was there and what this is all about is that this has got to be about something that he's done that
Yes.
affects another person, and this other person doesn't want it coming out, because the timing, like you said,
Hmm.
is I think really the biggest key to this. Why now? Why right before he's going to sign his life rights to this movie where they can then talk about anything they want. They can find out about anything. They can expose anything. It's a very big deal to sign away your life rights like that, to have them in the hands of Bev Mellon, who can do whatever she wants with it, right? So whoever is probably behind this is like, well, this thing happened to me and I'm embarrassed about it, or I don't feel good about it, or, F Charles. So like, I'm not having it. Like, how dare he move forward where I didn't get to move forward because of something he did to me.
Okay, everybody, I've got something. This is breaking theory news. This is theories that I have just come up with on the spot. So, thank you. Okay, here we go. This could be what is happening, and this goes into the long game idea very, very much. What is one thing we all know about Hollywood, to the point that there were featured stories about it over the past several months? Nepotism. Nepotism runs rampant in this entertainment industry, and somehow people often get jobs or work in the business because of who their parents were, who their friends were.
Right.
Is it very well possible that the original Dudenoff is somebody sort of like you were describing, somebody who has been in this industry for a very long time, was slighted by Charles, has wanted revenge on Charles ever since, but also is no longer with us? Passed away some time ago. Maybe they did live in the Dudenoff apartment once upon a time, but maybe their child, who could be somebody working on this movie, knows that it was their father or their mother's desire to get revenge on him in some shape or form. Now, this child may not be necessarily the most mustache twirling villain out there and does not necessarily want to do something, but they're keeping this idea alive in the event that Charles does something that's going to get these secrets out, or is going to, stoke their desire for revenge. That's when they put something into action. And maybe they know some of the other Westies, but they allow them to use the apartment. They pay them, which is something we talked a little bit about in the review, to sort of make sure they don't talk that much about it, just in case the moment arrives where they have to do something. Because ultimately, the podcast has been going on for a while, and I tend to forget that the podcast is out there in the public. But clearly, they were not so worried about taking out Charles beforehand that they were worried that Charles was going to go on there on the podcast and sort of leak something, which goes into what you're saying about maybe he's ashamed. If he's ashamed of something, he's not going to go on a podcast and talk about it.
It's kind of interesting that, you brought this up, that this podcast has been going on for a long time. And we did have the fans for a little while, and then they just kind of disappeared. And then it just, with the play and the podcast, it is kind of strange that these three don't have more fame than they do. The fact that they're making a movie about it, and it's not a little indie movie, it's Paramount is making a movie with Eugene Levy as the star. This is humongous. This is going to put them into this next sort of stratosphere of fame, but they should already have some sort of fame if this is happening to them. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not a little podcast. It's not like us, where we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and, Eugene Levy's on our doorstep being like, sign away your rights.
Eugene Levy, if you want to come to my doorstep, I will sign
1, 2, 3, 4 Internet Street.
I will sign anything you want me to sign. It'll all be good. No, I think there's something interesting to that. And maybe the trio is a little bit delusional about their level of fame. Maybe it's they kind of insulate themselves in the Arconia, that they don't think about it. But I think Charles has clearly been delusional to the point where he doesn't think that these skeletons that are in his closet are going to come back. But I think at this point, you see the words long game, Dudenoff, the card game that they all play is mentioned on there. You know at this point that, okay, whoever was renting out that particular apartment, because those were rented out, they have been doing it for a while. They know the card game. They're familiar with these people on some level. You have to think now that they're probably going to try again if they didn't hit it the first time, if you were the target. And once again, I still don't see any compelling reason why it's Sazz. I don't know why they would know it was Sazz entering that apartment. So to me, it just has to be Charles.
Yeah, I think either it was Sazz because they knew that Sazz had figured out what the secret was, or was getting closer to figuring out what the secret was, and was going to bring it to Charles that this was happening. And they were like, no, 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 my revenge is my revenge. You don't get
Yeah.
to spoil my revenge. Like, stop it. And that Sazz was taken out, and now Charles is the target, or it was always Charles. But the issue is, like, if Sazz knew the secret, then Sazz was going to be needed to take out too. So could it just have been the person who was going to take out Sazz was looking to actually take them both out?
That may be something that is very, very interesting. And who I saw it coming the first time. I did not see it coming that. Look at this.
Breaking news.
We have 2 breaking news updates within the. Sometimes this is actually what happens to us in real life too. We'll get into these conversations about the show, and one of us just magically spout off something that we never thought about before that moment. But that's what we have to say right now about the long game. But I think for you guys in the comments, like, what does this mean to you? How long do you think the killer has been planning this? And do you think there is an overall Moriarty-esque figure behind everything, the entire show? I'll admit, I'm not fully there yet. I would be fully there if they cast, I don't know, the biggest A-list. If George Clooney is the Moriarty on this, I will be all for it, but it's going to take a little bit of work for me.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. Of course, hit that subscribe button. As we said earlier, 3 Only Murders in the Building updates here at the channel every week. Also, join our Patreon, a link in the description below for that, and we are taking on the Penguin exclusively over there. So be sure to join our Patreon. Thank you to those of you who have.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.